As a music producer, you might often need to do your own mixes, and sometimes you might feel the moment you start mixing your music, your production really falls apart. Now, I know that's me. I'm not a professional mixing engineer, but for years and years, I have been trying to do something that at least sounds like a balanced mix, and eventually I've come up with three things, 3 pointers that would ultimately allow you to make your mix sound balanced. You can see on my screen, I've got two Logic sessions opened up. On the left, I have the production session, and on the right, I have the same thing in mixed session. Let's try to hear the differences if we can. Oh yes, this is Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Very simple. And the same simple music once I take it to mixing. So what has changed? Well, one answer can be that in your mix session you've got a hell lot of plugins going on, but these plugins have been applied for a specific reason. In fact, for 3 specific reasons. And now it's time we talk about that. So the 3 fundamental ideas that you need to work on when you're working on mixing is going to be number 1, you need to make sure that all your instruments are focusing at the right spot. Let's call it focus. And I'll tell you how to attain that as well. Number 2, you need to make sure all your instruments have proper dynamics. And thirdly, you need to make sure that all your instruments are placed in proper space. So focus, dynamics and space, these 3 things, if you have taken into account, then 90% of the time you would end up getting your mix into a proper balanced position. So if you look at my session, you would find that all the tracks have 2 things in common. The first is an EQ. There is an EQ on literally all the tracks, and there is a compressor on almost all the tracks over there. EQ and compressor takes care of the first 2 problems. That's your focus and your dynamics. Now let us dive deep into them and try to understand what I mean by focus. Look here. Let's start from the drum section, alright? This is how the drums sound right now. Now, if you look at this, let us look at the kick drum first. There is an EQ going on over here, which is mildly boosting around 70 Hz and cutting around 200 and 2K. Alright, let's compare this with our snare. This is our snare, or in fact the rim, and there is a clap. So the rim and the clap are layered together throughout, so they're gonna together sound like one unit instrument. If you look at this, there is a cut at around 3K over here, there is a cut at around 10K, there is a cut at around 200 once again, 250. So what is exactly going on with my kick and snare pair? With the kick drum, I am making sure that the focus is around 70 Hz because that is where my fundamental of this song is lying at. I'm making sure I'm cutting around 2K because I do not want the body to come out of the kick, I just want the thump. In some cases, you would find out it's necessary that you really boost up this frequency in order to make it cut through. Like if you hear now, it's much more sharper sound. That means on mobile phone speakers, it will really come out. But in this situation, I don't really want that. So I'm gonna put it at negative 3.4. Look at my rim shot. If I take away this cut, the rim is a little bit sharper. Here, it loses the sharpness. So we are making sure we are adjusting the frequencies in such a way that the listener's focus is exactly where we want it to be and not where the actual sample manufacturer from where you took this drum sample, how they have designed it, you just put it just like that. You don't want that to happen. Look at the clap. This section was giving me a little boxiness. And now it becomes a little bit light. This section was giving me sharpness. And now it's gone. Alright? Subtle things, but mattered a lot. So focus is really a thing that is achieved by using a proper EQ technique. You want to do 2 things here. Boost, where you want the focus to go, and cut, where you want to take the focus away from. That is often the very first thing I do on all my tracks, as you can see over here. Everywhere the same thing has been done. We don't generally use very heavy cuts and boosts. We certainly can do that in production, but during mixing, no, we don't. Now let us look at the compressors here. The compressors control dynamics. Like if I go to the kick drum, for example, let me make the kick drum a little bigger over here so you can see both of them together. Now notice over there, okay? I'm just gonna loop from here till here. This is one kick drum which is a little louder, as you can see, and the second one is a little softer. This is important. Look here. For the first kick drum, it's coming until almost 3 decibels or 2.5 decibels. And for the second one, it's just cutting around 0.4 decibels or something. You can see this better if I switch to the graph mode. You can see the gain reduction in white color here. So for the louder one, the first one, there is a higher amount of gain reduction. For the second one, that is the softer one, there is a less amount of gain reduction. That means we are shaping the sound, we are shaping how the peak looks like, and we are taking care of the dynamics. That means in the focus, by boosting and cutting, you are creating a specific direction for the sound. And now in dynamics, using compressor, you make that focus very solid. You make it sit there very tightly. Our third point was space. Now the space can be achieved. A lot of people think that space should be always achieved by using reverbs or delays, but a space can be achieved in different ways. One of the ways which I have made sure that I implement here is by using modulation plugins like Chorus. The way Chorus works is basically it creates a little bit of phasing between the left and right stereo channel of that audio. So let's say there is a stereo sound wave that is exactly in sync. This is left, this is right. Now at this moment, if you see, they really line up well. I mean, obviously I'm using the same picture, copied it twice, but the moment you apply the chorus effect, for example, it changes slightly like this. Now if you take this and try to superimpose, you would find out it is no longer such clearer picture. There is a little difference. This is exactly what Chorus does. And that's how it gives you an idea of a further elevated stereo space. One more interesting way you can do the same activity, as I have done on this clap tracks, is using sample delay. It will delay the left and the right signal a bit. So for sample delay, let's assume this is left, this is right, and you would find out that the left has been shifted by certain milliseconds, and the right has been shifted by again certain milliseconds. And generally, we do not prefer this milliseconds to be exactly the same amount. So that creates something that is called the Haas effect. And the fundamental of Haas effect is really making the sound fall on your one ear quicker compared to the other ear. And that gives you a sense of direction, a sense of stereo width, and therefore elevating the overall spectrum. Most certainly, you can use reverbs and delays for your spatial activities. Like over here, you can see there's a tape delay running at 16. This is called a slapback delay. You can see there are 3 buses built up over there, which are room reverb, plate reverb, and delay literally. I'm running them through Valhalla Vintage Verb, Valhalla Plate Reverb, and a stereo delay over here. And you can also see I've applied an EQ before the sound signal hitting the reverb or the delay units, so I can exclude the extreme lows and the extreme highs, because you do not want your extreme lows to be reverbing, you do not want your extreme highs to be reverbing. And if I just play these 3 buses, you would be able to hear how the room sound is coming. This is really just the room sound, alright? And when it gets mixed with the original sound, this is what you get. So our space is really a combination of your reverbs or your delays, the modulation, the Haas effect that you create with your sample delays, and all these things together give you the sense of space. So to summarize, you start by setting the focus, you make sure you're putting the right dynamics, and ultimately you take your sound and put them in the right space. As long as you're able to do these 3 things properly, you are always going to end up with a very, very, very balanced mix every single point of time.